This video is brought to you by Fallen Dominion Studios. Check out their website at fallendominionstudios.com. Hey there folks, welcome back to the Dice Odyssey. I'm Kaz, and today I'm going to be bringing to you a Kickstarter pre-production preview of a game called Xerxes. And also, take a look at that beard, okay? He kind of puts me to shame, but he doesn't put my cousin to shame. See what I'm talking about? But anyway, this is going up on Kickstarter pretty soon. It's basically a worker placement resource production game with a tiny bit of take that in it. You're basically one of the king's satraps that are running around the known world, the different nations, and basically spreading his political influence in general, gaining resources, doing conquests, and things of that nature. What I'm gonna do is give you just a quick brief overview of the game, give you an idea of how it plays, and then I'm gonna get back to my final thoughts. Also keep in mind everything's pre-production, so anything I say or show you is going to be subject to change. Xerxes, you're going to be one of 4 different satraps who have their own special power and player board, okay? Now that special power can only be used once per the actual game. You're going to start with 4 pawns, 3 flags. You're also going to gain a number of campaign cards and taxation cards, which you'll want to try to fulfill throughout the course of the game. Now the main goal of the game is to be the first person at 25 points or the person with the most points by the 7th round. At the beginning of the game, all players are going to look at their satrap boards and find their starting location, and that's going to be the location that they own the rest of the game. All players are going to put 1 pawn on the turn track underneath the Xerxes symbol. Now you've got different kinds of actions that you can do over several different phases of the game throughout all the rounds. Now in the resources phase, you can do one of 2 things. You can gather resources or you can complete campaign cards. In turn order, each player is going to place out their pawns at different places on the map. If you look at the map, it shows the different kinds of areas that have different styles of resources. And they also include a military symbol wherever you place them. Now say you want to change up the turn order for the next round. Well then you can actually take one of your pawns and send it to King Xerxes to request a round turn change. That now means you can actually change the turn order sequence however you decide to do so. On the turn order sequence, you also notice that you can lose resources or military power or gain resources and military power depending on where you put them. After all the pawns have been placed, you reveal the next annual event from the annual event deck. Now these cards will have things like, hey, you will not gain any wheat for the round. Everyone has their pawn in a spot that has wheat will not gain it for that round. Or let's say another card might come out in a different round that has you can gain any 3 resources you want. Well, everybody gets to choose any 3 resources that they want. Now, when you're ready to gather those resources, you go ahead and move however many resources you gather onto your track to show your full total. But let's say you want to go ahead and complete a campaign card. Well, instead of gathering those resources, you also can take advantage of the military symbol that's there on that particular spot. What you'd look at is the campaign card itself. On that is represented several different kinds of military symbols. You need one of each type to actually complete this card. So for example, in this card, I need all of these, and if I do that, I gain the bonus at the bottom, which would be 5 victory points to me, right? So I'd move that up on the victory point track, and then I would choose a person at the table who would actually lose a victory point. During the build phase, you have 6 different buildings represented right above the victory point track that allows you to build them and gain their benefit at the bottom. To build these, you basically pay your resources in, place your flag down showing that you now own that building, and it becomes yours and you take the benefit at the bottom. In this particular example, you would gain 4 victory points, but everyone else would lose 2. During the taxation phase, you may complete as many taxation cards that you may have in your hand. Once you've paid those resources in, you gain the benefit at the bottom, whether it's the military symbol or the amount of victory points. And the nice thing is that the military symbols stay there round after round after round in a kind of an engine building aspect that allow you to continue completing those campaign cards as you go along. They just become more resources for you to use in the future. At the end of the round, you change up up the player order according to what may or may not have happened with Xerxes, and then play continues round after round after round until someone has reached 25 points, or after the 7th round, it's whoever has the most points wins. I'll get back to my final thoughts. Now, I'm somebody who likes worker placement and engine building and resource management in my games. I really do. Some games tend to overwhelm you too much with one or another or what have you, and sometimes it's like they try to cobble together too many things at once. With this one, I felt like it had a pretty decent balance with all of it, right? This was actually a very simple game to get into. It took maybe about 5 minutes to get into for everyone, and we really had a good time with it. I mean, it's not a very heavily deep game, right? But it's hard to explain. The strategies are there, and that's cool to me because sometimes, I mean, I like a game like Scythe, and I like games like Caverna and such, where there's a lot of heavy complexity at times and some really deep strategy involved. But, you know, they take a long time. This one does not take that long, and that's what I liked about it. The turns are snappy and quick, and, you know, in general, you're up and going very quickly, so there's very little AP in the game. That's another thing I liked is some games like this that are a lot heavier, there can have problems with analysis paralysis. There's not going to be much of that going on because there's only a few decisions you really have to make. I did like the campaign cards because it's slightly thematic in the sense that I'm doing a campaign, a kind of a conquest, right? And I'm getting 5 victory points for my military, but I'm going to be hurting someone else. It's almost like I took my military against them. But it doesn't hurt them too bad, right? But it does give me a lot of points. So these campaign cards are extraordinarily powerful, but it's not too destructive to everyone else at the table. And you're also doing a little take that when you pick somebody out, right? You also have a little bit of chance going on in the game with these event cards because you don't know, like you have to place before these come out, and so you don't know that if you place somewhere, you might be losing wheat that round, or you might be losing, you know, stone or whatever it is, right? And there's only a couple really that are going to benefit you, so you're running the risk of hurting yourself, but at the same time, you really can't do anything about it. So some people may or may not like that. I personally didn't find it any problem because it wasn't way too brutal. The saving grace was the fact that you're only going to have one thing go out once, you know what I mean? For example, you're only going to have a non-wheat card in there or a non-stone or gold or whatever it is just one time. And so even though you might have got missed wheat that round, you're not going to miss it any other round. I did like the buildings as well. The buildings kind of gave me a little bit of a Seven Wonders feel, just slightly, because of that historical aspect, and I tend to like that. I like the fact that they were a race, right? Because there's only 6 out there, and you got to claim them as quickly as you can because you're going to get a lot of points for them, and you're going to hurt other people. And again, it's not way too brutal, but it can put you ahead pretty quickly. But at the same time, I like that a couple of the buildings were a different kind of race. You know, they varied it up, and that's nice. It wasn't just the same. I like the fact that, you know, one building is a race in the sense that you're trying to get it quickly before you lose all the points for it. Or man, this one right here, you're going to have to wait for a little bit, and you're hoping nobody else jumps on it. You're watching those resource boards just to make sure nobody builds this last one, because the longer you wait, the more points you get. And that one's actually really fun, and that really creates a high tension in the game that you don't necessarily expect going into it. I really, really like that building, and so did everybody else. Another thing I liked was the fact that every satrap had their own special ability. Now, I will say I kind of wish you could have used it more than once a game, but some of these special abilities are pretty powerful, so I mean, I guess I can understand why they didn't go that route. I do wish you maybe could have used it twice, you know, because there's one special ability that was cool because it allows you to skip one of these event cards if they come up, and that's pretty stinking powerful, especially if you need something desperately that round and you're not getting it because of an event card. Well, you can say, not having to deal with it. Another thing, if I was going to have any other cons, again, these are kind of more minor than anything else, nitpicky. I didn't care so much for the player board. It seems counterintuitive to me. Now, it may not be for you, but moving your resource track going down instead of having it like flipped upside down and having going up, showing how many, like on a graph chart, showing, hey, you have more of this and you have of this. When you look at a graph chart, you're looking at higher versus lower, not lower versus higher. And so for me, a few times I got a little confused by it. you compensate for it fairly quickly. So it's not that big a deal, but I kind of wish that had been flipped. But that's just me. You may be okay with it. But anyway, overall, do I recommend this game? Yeah, I do. If you like resource management, a tiny bit of engine building in your game, a tiny bit of take that, and worker placement, check this game out. The artwork's awesome. It really drew me in. I really like the presentation, and I've still got just a prototype, right? But I liked how the game looked, and Alcyon Creative, I think, has done a great job here. You're getting a very simple strategic game that offers you good choices in a very condensed amount of time, and I enjoyed it for that reason. So yeah, go check it out on Kickstarter if you get a chance. If anything sounded appealing to you, definitely give it a look. Anyway, thank you again for watching the Dice Odyssey videos. I'm Kaz. I really appreciate you. You have a blessed day, and game away.